Do you guys remember one of the games that was supposed to be the next big thing for Xbox? It was supposed to kickstart a new generation of live service games. It was supposed to kickstart a new era of online entertainment with crossovers with celebrities. They had a huge celebrity involved with this. They had all new technologies with multiple servers meshing together to work on destructible environments. This was supposed to be the next big thing. It was not. It was not. This is a video from the one and only Kroby Cat from 5 years ago. But I think, again, it's important to look back at these things because so many of these mistakes that are being made today have happened for years, okay? Decades even. People who are feeling like, it feels like just recently we started seeing big flops, big live service flops. No, these have happened forever. It's just now they are very, very visible and companies are putting a lot more chips on the table to make the bet. But this has happened forever, okay? Concord was the biggest flop probably in live service history when you account for all the money involved. But it was far from the first. You know, this has happened many, many times before. The only difference is as time has gone by, the scale has gotten bigger. It's the same thing with like a similar Kroby Cat video we've looked at previously, which was the the Mass Effect Andromeda one, where the whole point of the video is like 5 years and $40 million equals Mass Effect Andromeda. When this video launched 7 years ago, it was insane to think that this game cost $40 million. Nowadays, that's considered a budget title. That's considered like a small, or probably a medium-sized indie project, okay? Immortals of Avium cost $80 million to make, and then another like 40 to market or something like that. It was like a huge investment, and it just totally flopped. Times change, and standards change as a result of that. But the point of it is to say, this is far from the first time we've had live service games catastrophically flop. And Crackdown was supposed to be the next big thing, and it was not.
Thank you. Crackdown has always been about innovation in open world gaming. And while we're set to deliver a massive new city for you to play in, it's the... sorry.
I always feel bad watching these things because it is kind of funny watching people have like slight mental breakdowns when giving press conference speeches, but also like at the same time, it is mad stressful. Okay. Nobody's doubting that. I feel for this guy. It's gotta be so freaking stressful to be up here talking like this. So nothing but love to this guy. I don't know him, but I'm sure it's just like your heart's in your throat and everybody's watching, and you know if you screw this up that it's going to be mocked a decade later by some prick in his basement sipping coffee in a red Yeti thermos. But still, it's part of the job. It's part of the job, man. It's part of what you're doing.
It's the anything part of that vision where we're working to set a new bar. The in-engine gameplay and the technology that is the foundation for our game and the foundation for how we will change the way you play games forever. This is Crackdown 3.
Honestly, I prefer it when these gaming executives would show up to E3 and stuff wearing suits and ties. I prefer that because it's like, yes, you're an executive. You're like the big guy in the big office upstairs. You're not like wearing a t-shirt to work because you're the hip young guy that's like cool like the young people. You know, be real. Be real. In a weird way, it's more real for you to dress snooty and nice and fancy than to show up wearing like sneakers and a t-shirt. You know, I appreciate this.
At E3 this year, Microsoft announced that Crackdown 3 had been delayed to 2017.
Oh, Scorpio. I forgot about Project Scorpio.
Originally planned for a November 7th release date, Microsoft has announced that Crackdown 3 has been delayed until spring 2018.
Again.
Yeah, there are some troubling signs that Crackdown 3 might be getting pushed back yet again, this time possibly to 2019.
Hi, hello, wake up. You, yeah, wake up. I said wake up!
Rip headphone users.
Microsoft is unwilling to delay this game any further. Come hell or high water, whatever it is, it's coming out on February 22nd.
Some people look out on the city and just see lights. I see lives, Agent, burning with hope for a better future. But what happens when evil comes out of the shadows? We do what we always do. We go to work.
That's about right. We crack down. Dude, it's so bad. They delayed this game so many times, and it went absolutely nowhere. But this is one of those important things to remember is Xbox has had trouble putting out consistently good games for at least a decade. More than that, I think. There is some problem within Xbox Studios where they do not know what it takes to get these games out in like a consistent quality way. It's one thing you can give PlayStation is that historically, until very recently, they were able to really know when something was going to be good and when to greenlight a project and when to not greenlight a different project. They were very careful with what they gave the thumbs up and what they gave the thumbs down to. And they were historically very, very good at it. Even Concord, to a certain extent, you can say that it still was like a polished game. There wasn't a lot of content, and it wasn't a game anybody wanted. But at the very least, it was polished. You know, they spent the money to get it there. But Xbox has just always struggled to pick the right projects and then to polish them properly. One of the big things with Crackdown 3 was it was supposed to be all about destructible environments. And that's just something, I think they show it here, that never really materialized.
This is far from over. In fact, it's only just begun.
Crackdown 3 will blow up the way you play games today by introducing a revolutionary new multiplayer experience using 100% destructible environments.
So that was the whole premise, was like similar to what the finals is doing. They wanted to have server managed destructible environments. So all players would see the same thing happening in real time. So you could just be fighting in a skyscraper and the whole thing collapses. That's what they wanted. It didn't end up materializing. It just wasn't a thing. You know, they overpromised and weren't able to deliver, so the whole thing fell apart. And so what you end up with is just a really lackluster, lame whatever this is. Like what?
What you can do with a gun. It's the opportunities you can create with destruction.
And this, by the way, goes all the way to the edge of the city, which is as we extend the city, we just add more and more cloud compute to handle destruction right out to the edge of the vista.
So exciting. Thrilling.
By connecting to the Microsoft Cloud, play with 20 times the computational power of your Xbox One and experience unrelenting destruction and mayhem.
See, that game looks kind of cool. Imagine having a firefight inside of a skyscraper and then the skyscraper collapses like in Uncharted 2. That'd be awesome. We'd all love that. And to a certain extent, like the finals aims to do just that. They have destructible environments where you could be fighting and then the floor just falls out from under you. Even then there's limitations. You know, it's not like you can just literally blow up an entire skyscraper, but it's still similar. But this is a game people wanted. This is the game people wanted. But what they got was just nowhere near. Everybody in chat saying, yeah, the pre-alpha looks way better. Yeah, it does. And this is the demo that won over executives. They greenlit this, wanting this game to come out. But what we got was this weird, like, chunky thing you can see where not even close. Like, look at that. How is that supposed to be anywhere near the same? These other things, like destructible walls as well.
This wall is physical, so every single bullet actually takes away a little bit of the geometry. And I remove every part around the shape that I'm making there. Then physically, that bit in the middle, you would absolutely expect to not be suspended in midair, but to fall out and be a physical shape by itself, like that.
It's so much worse. Oh my God. Because it turns out it's not actually that easy to pull off what you can do in a closed demo compared to what is practical on the grand scale of things. Because with this, with all live service games, they run into this problem where there are costs associated with the scale. With your standard live service game, you would hope, you know, this is like maybe number of players, right? And then this is, or maybe this is, what should I do? Costs, and then this is number of players. So you would hope that for most live service games, you have a profitability score that kind of goes like this, okay? You start off not making much money, but it really takes off when you get a lot of players spending a lot of money for skins and that type of thing. And you have other costs associated with it. Dev costs could be factored into this, but you'd hope that as it scales up, the graphs are at a different rate, or the equations come out at a different rate. So as you scale, once you cross this point, that's your break-even point, you're making money. All of this money in here is profit. Nothing but profit. And the more players you get, the more that's going to be exaggerated, because this gap between the green line and the red line is only going to get bigger and bigger. You have to get all the way over here to get to that point, but if you can do that, you're good. The problem with Crackdown 3 is that with the destructible environment stuff they wanted to do, it wasn't going to scale like that. This red line was going to be much, much different. And it seemed like in order to do what they wanted to do with the crazy amount of server infrastructure they had, if they went from 5,000 players to 50,000 to 500,000 players, this line would just be a straight vertical line before long, because there'd be so much server infrastructure required just to pay for the simulation stuff they wanted to do. It wouldn't be practical. There was no way that this line would ever catch up. No matter how many skins you sold, no matter if you charged a $10 a month fee, which players weren't ever going to pay, there just was no way to scale it. The math and the business side of it just didn't make sense. And that's the thing with live service games, is it's not about just delivering features. The second you try to implement cloud stuff, there are added costs to that. I think that's part of the reason that they shut down Concord, was just because they were like, we're not making enough money to even pay for the servers we have for the 200 players we have. Even for Suicide Squad, it's a similar thing, which is why they're going to shut that game the second they get out the last of this seasonal content. There's just no way for it to make sense. It just doesn't. So they're going to can it. In this case, they tried to salvage it, and they were like, listen, you can't have this many servers enabled. You got to make do with a 50th of the compute power in the cloud that you're talking about, or none of it at all. I don't even know if what they're showing here is running in the cloud. This looks like it's running on the Xbox One. That's what it looks like to me. I don't think this was running in the cloud at all. Maybe somebody could correct me if it was cloud managed destruction, but this looks to me like stuff running on a console from 2013, which would make sense if they're like, hey, this isn't looking like it's going to work, so let's just run it locally and hope for the best. Jeez, dude. That awkward moment when Red Faction from like 2001 had more impressive destruction.
If we would have a massive building like this, a typical Crackdown style building, it means we would have to be able to go into every single room in every single building. Every building would have to have space behind it and rooms inside it.
It's just hollow. There's nothing in there. Doesn't matter. Not even close. In many ways, I don't think it even is what they originally promised. This is something different. What they were showing with collapsible skyscrapers and everything is totally different than what was delivered. It's not even the same thing anymore. It's not even the same game.
Eventually, as we do enough damage to the base of this building here, that whole structure would physically come down. So there it goes. Once you've done enough destruction, we've destroyed the superstructure, the whole thing comes crashing down. It's all physical, it's all real time.
I would love to know where that pre-alpha build is. If it's somewhere and people could play it. Or if it really did rely so much on cloud compute stuff that no longer exists. It's not even the same thing. Not even. So in that case, it was a live service game that overpromised. They weren't able to deliver it, but they still put it out. Beyond Good and Evil 2, that's another not live service. That's another game that has amazing tech. And I've shown this before. This was shown off in 2017, but I have a feeling something similar might have happened. I think they got this demo working where the whole point is that they're showing seamless space travel, like from planet surface into the atmosphere. And I think as they show this off, they're like, isn't this really cool? Yeah. But they realize it's not actually that simple to take this and then generate an entire game around it and still maintain this scale. But they had basically shown it off too early, and now people would expect this from the game, and anything they do is going to be seen as a downgrade. So like, look at this. This is the whole premise, is that you can hop in this ship and scale. Like, look at this. Eat your heart out, Starfield. Watch this. He's just going to scale out from the city in real time out to the planet, all the way out. And it's streaming in real time. This was running 7 years ago. They had this working. It's insane. He's going to press a button and then it's going to zip right back here in a second. So they showed this off. They had this running just like that pre-alpha build of Crackdown 3 that looked pretty good. They had this running, but when you actually get down to brass tacks and you're like, oh, in order to actually get this running on consumer grade hardware, we're going to have to do some insane stuff we just don't think we're going to be able to do. Look at that. That's insane. It might be that they have the tech, they have the software there, but they're just like, hey, we need more memory. We can run this on a PC, but we need more memory. So we're going to wait till the PlayStation 6. Maybe that's what they're waiting for. I don't know. But this is ridiculously impressive tech. Even on the scale of like what Star Engine is doing over at RSI for Star Citizen, what BGS did for Starfield, what No Man's Sky has been doing. This is very, very impressive. And this is 7 years old. So this was in many ways ahead of its time, just like that destructible environment tech from Crackdown 3 was ahead of its time. But delivering a game using that tech is a totally separate question. It's not as simple as just put this in a game and we're okay, we win. Like, it's not that simple. It very well could be that this demo is really, really impressive, but when it gets to loading small objects, like this type of thing that you would expect to see in environments in cities, maybe that's just something that's not as easy or as practical, and it can't load that in as quickly as big generic objects like oceans or mountains with repeating textures. So the demo might be really, really impressive in some ways, but it might be lacking in others that we just don't see. But like, watch this. He's gonna just take off his ship. Real time, flying away from the city. Like it's nothing, going 5,000 kilometers an hour. And he's going to increase the speed as he goes back over the city, flying over here, and he's going to take off into the atmosphere. Watch this. Hyperspeed, going 20,000 kilometers a second, or an hour, not a second. That would be a bit much. Insane levels of data streaming. Very impressive. Very impressive. But again, delivering a game based off of this demo is a totally separate question. And that's the problem that they ran into with all of this, with Crackdown 3, with this game. It's just not that simple. Bear in mind, this thing was also revealed at the same time as this trailer from 2017 when they re-announced it. We're getting GTA 6 before this, aren't we? Sure are. Sure are. This game is still in production somewhere. It hasn't been canceled. Somewhere they're making this. I don't know what studio's making it, but somewhere they're making this. I don't know where or who or how many people are working on it, but that exists somewhere. So anyway, the lesson from all of this is that sometimes a pitch can be really convincing, but what's actually doable is a totally separate issue. And often, I think, just because something sounds like it's going to be amazing does not mean that it's going to actually come to fruition. And I think for Xbox's executives, they were so hopeful they could have this big W with Crackdown 3 that they were willing to keep going along with it, even though realistically within a year of seeing that demo and then seeing the groundwork be laid to actually make it into a game, they should have realized this is never going to happen. This just isn't going to happen, and just moved on from it. But they didn't. They let it keep going. They delayed it for years and years, said, try to figure it out. And they just never did. And it was a trash as a result of that. So it's too bad. It's too bad. Maybe they'll figure it out later. Maybe they'll try Crackdown 4 and that'll do well. I don't know. Maybe they just need to try again. Maybe that's the takeaway.
He took my thing.